Michael, 10-2. The 13th juror at home believes that the prosecution did better, but 2 jurors. I mean, that's not bad. It's not great, but it's not bad.
It's a hung jury.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll take it. You know, I mean, in all honesty, when I look at the two, I'm not going to deny that the prosecutor, he did a fantastic job in his closing, right?
Got better facts.
Yeah, exactly. And you work with what you got, you know, and there's only so much you can do. But on the same token, I do think that there is doubt in this case. I don't think anyone is going to deny, anyone would deny that there's doubt. The question is it reasonable? And I think the defense actually did a good job at showing that there could be reasonable doubt in this case.
All right, 83-17. Look at the clock, it's still ticking. We're getting close to 7 hours of deliberations. The jury started early today. Our coverage continues. We will continue to stay on the air until we hear from that jury.
So tell us what happened, Grant. Is that how you left your family?
No, I didn't do any of this.
This is a twisted case of alleged murder, money, and porn.
The rules are simple.
Prosecutors say he stole more than $200,000 from his family to send to this webcam model.
Some girl in Bulgaria got $200,000. I just want the truth.
She was the object of his obsession, a Bulgarian beauty webcam girl that Grant Amato met through an adult website, alluring videos like these.
You bitch. Highly.
Some too explicit to show, had Amato hooked.
All right, Sylvia, look at me. I am outside going to check the mail. And I'm asking you if you can please, pretty please, send me one of your videos. I love it so much when you just send them to me. Yeah, I don't like buying your stuff. It makes me feel weird. Could you please send me one though?
Over a period of less than 6 months, Amato sent more than $200,000 to his internet lover, Sylvia Ventislavova. Money he allegedly stole from his parents and brother. His parents demanded he end the online relationship and made a list of rules for Amato to follow if he wanted to continue living with them. Among the conditions, Amato had to stop watching pornography. Using the internet past midnight, they wanted him to get a day job and pay back the money he took from them.
Oh, poor baby. I'm so sorry.
No, you're not. You're not sorry at all.
Amato reportedly initially agreed, but when his father discovered he had resumed contact with his webcam girlfriend, they fought. And when Amato's brother didn't show up for work the next day, police were called to the home for a wellness check.
Oh, we've blown the horn and everything, so. Sheriff's office!
When deputies got no response, they entered the home to find Amato's parents, Chad and Margaret, and brother Cody, all shot to death. Grant Amato was nowhere to be found.
We got the picture here, Adam.
Police tracked him to a Florida hotel the next day. He was confronted with bloody photos taken at the crime scene.
Did you leave the house with your brother Cody looking like that? Or did you leave the house with your father looking like that? Or your mother? Is that how you left your family?
No, I didn't do any of this.
Amato claims he's innocent, and his attorneys argue that the state's case against him is weak.
No physical forensic evidence linking him to this crime. And I'm still going to maintain that from day one, and I'm still going to continue to maintain that.
Amato says he's a victim too, and even tried to claim his parents' life insurance benefits. But that request was denied because of his alleged connection to their murders.
I mean, I've been getting blamed for the last half a year for everything, and I've been trying to move forward into a positive direction. And then every day I'm reminded of all the trouble that I had caused. And then I keep being told the same thing over and over again, but there's nothing that I can do to change it.
Welcome back to our continuing coverage of the Grant Amato death penalty trial. Here's where we are, folks. We're waiting for the jury to come back with a verdict. They've been deliberating over 7 hours. Haven't heard much from them, but they are continuing. The judge has given them a lot of leeway here, so we will remain on the air all night as long as that jury is deliberating or until they reach a verdict, which of course you will see live on Court TV. That's our mission. That's what we do. It's gavel to gavel coverage. You don't miss verdicts on Court TV. So right now, let's check in at the courthouse. Chanley Painter, Court TV legal correspondent with us. A long day for Chanley Painter, but it's been a long day for this jury as well. Chanley, give us an update on what exactly is happening at the courthouse. What have we heard about this jury tonight?
Well, we've heard that they did have dinner a little bit earlier, and they're able to deliberate here at the courthouse as long as they want to this evening. Now, they were told this morning, first thing, to go back home, pack a bag, because they're going to be sequestered. So as soon as they want to wrap up the evening, they'll go to a hotel and resume deliberations tomorrow if they haven't reached a verdict at some point tonight. The judge is just leaving this in their hands, whatever they want to do. We haven't heard from them all day, and we did hear from him earlier today when they asked for some sticky notes and a whiteboard to start working at the beginning of deliberations, but it's been quiet here. Now we have family on standby still here, 9 o'clock in the evening. They're here in and out of the courthouse quite a bit of the Amatos, and of course the attorneys are all on standby here, and we are too.
All right, so the courthouse is done for the day. I mean, everybody else is out of there, so describe where in the courthouse the courtroom is, how many people are around, are there a lot of sheriff's deputies, exactly what's the situation inside there?
Well, it's pretty much ghost town out here right now because you are right. The courthouse is closed, but there are a handful of sheriff's deputies still here working the security when you go into the courthouse, and you'll see some of maybe the family hanging out in the lobby of the courthouse there right past security, but the courtroom is on the 6th floor of the courthouse here, and so there's maybe some media, the court PIO hanging out there up there where the courtroom is. But on the 2nd floor of the courthouse, Benny, that's where the state's attorney's office is. That's where the prosecutors are. That's where they're holed up, as well as a lot of the family members up on the 2nd floor as well with the prosecutors. The 3rd floor of the courthouse has the public defender's office. That's where the defense team is hanging out. And again, all on standby. You'll see it occasionally leave and come back, and we're just waiting on pins and needles to see what the jury does, if anything, tonight.
All right, Chanley, I have a copy that you guys got for us, which is the verdict form here. So this isn't simple guilty or not guilty just on the premeditated murder. Walk us through what the potential verdicts are here and the potential decisions that this jury may have to make tonight.
Absolutely. So Grant Amato, he's charged with 3 counts of first-degree premeditated murder. Now that is a possible death case, death penalty. There'll be a penalty phase if he's found guilty of that charge for death or life without parole, depending on what the jury decides. But on this verdict form, this jury can consider 2 lesser included offenses for first-degree premeditated murder, and that's murder in the 2nd degree, which is that of the depraved mind, is when you murder someone with a depraved mind, and then there's the manslaughter, which is even lower, which has the negligence standard here in Florida. And now those are less than the death penalty. So, for example, 2nd-degree murder, if they find that he's guilty of that and he used a weapon or a handgun, that is a life felony. So that's still life in prison. But the manslaughter, if they find that he acted or killed his family with this negligent intent with the weapon, that's 30 years, Benny. So those are some of the options that they're considering.
All right. Obviously says it's a ghost town. It's quiet. In any observations you've made of the Amato family, do we know what they believe here? Do we know if they're hoping for a particular verdict, or do they just want to hear what this jury has to say? Do we have any idea tonight?
Well, I know that they've sat on the side of the prosecution throughout this trial. If that says anything, they've been very private. They haven't been speaking to a lot of the media here, and several family members, were on the prosecutor's witness list and testified in the prosecution's case in chief, and they're hanging out on the 2nd floor with the prosecutor's office. Whatever that may indicate, kind of speaks for itself. But they have not publicly said anything other than what they said on the witness stand.
All right, another big storyline today was that last night when we were here on the air, we were talking about Grant Amato had decided to testify, and that was confirmed by his lead attorney. And then apparently overnight, a change of heart. But he did speak in court today. Let's take a look at Grant Amato in court outside the presence of the jury.
Mr. Amato, it is my understanding that you've had discussions with your attorney regarding testifying in this matter?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And you've discussed, I assume, I don't want to know the exact nature or exact conversations, but I assume you've discussed the pros and cons of the matter of testifying on your behalf and not testifying on your behalf.
Yes.
You do realize you have a Fifth Amendment right to remain silent based upon our Constitution.
I do.
And you also realize that you do have the opportunity to waive that Fifth Amendment right that you choose to and tell what you believe, whatever facts you wish to add or your side of the story. Do you understand that?
I do.
And after all the conversations with your attorney, you also understand that if you were to testify on your behalf, that you would be subject to cross-examination just as any other witness and examined just as any other witness. Do you understand that?
I do.
All right, and anything in regards to your background, although the court doesn't know the entire aspect of your background, if you had any prior convictions that were felony convictions or misdemeanor crimes of dishonesty, that you could be cross-examined on those. Do you understand that?
I do.
And that you would also be cross-examined just as any other witness in this case. Do you understand that?
I do.
And your credibility would be evaluated just as any other witness in this case.
I do.
And based upon the entire discussions of the pros and cons with your attorney, you've made the decision that you do not wish to testify.
That's correct.
And you are satisfied with that decision.
I am.
All right, so that was Grant Amato, and what a different day we would have had down there in Seminole County, Florida, if he had decided to testify, but he apparently changed his mind. Chanley Painter, Court TV legal correspondent, still with us. Chanley, do we know exactly what happened here, how it went from he's going to testify to getting up in court and waiving his right to testify?
Well, we know that his defense team, lead attorney Jeff Dowdy, is good friends with Mark O'Mara, who pretty much sought his advice on strategy for the defense in this case, and of course consulted with Grant. It was Grant's decision, though. That's what Jeff Dowdy told us this morning, that ultimately it comes down to what he wants to do, and he did want to testify last night, but this morning had a change of heart and decided not to take the stand, and so that's what we were told. And of course, you just aired him waiving his right to testify, but after that was over, he seemed a little bit more relaxed in the courtroom, Vinny. It was sort of like he was able to smile a little bit more, even talk a little bit more to his attorneys. After that, sort of almost weight was sort of lifted off his shoulders.
And you know, one other thing that I always like to gauge is at the end of the day, and while everyone's, they've made their last arguments to the jury, maybe it's body language, maybe it's something they say, or how you kind of interpret the way they're reacting to it. How would you say the prosecution and defense were confidence-wise? After all the evidence, the arguments were made, and everything is out of their hands. Did either side seem more confident than the other today?
Not necessarily. Now, every day after court, the defense team sort of all gets up and they're always in a hurry, a rush to leave the courtroom. So again, that was normal today. After closings, rush to leave the courtroom, but seeming confident as they did every day after the trial. And of course, prosecutors seemed to feel confident in what Dominic Leo was able to argue in front of the jury today. So I think both are positive. I just heard that the prosecutors are actually in the courtroom right now. They're waiting inside the courtroom. They've on the second floor, but they go up to the courtroom just to switch it up here on standby.
All right. Now, I know the jury has eaten tonight, Chanley. Just want to make sure that you've had something to eat. Mm-hmm. All right. Because this could be a long night.
I've had about 3 slices of pizza.
All right. Perfect. So we are ready, folks. Chanley Painter will be at the courthouse, and she will deliver that verdict for us when it happens. Again, folks, we're not going anywhere. I mean, if the jury's deliberating, we are on the air. When they reach that verdict, we will bring it to you, let you know everything that's happening. Got a lot more to talk about. Verdict Watch continues, 7 hours, 16 minutes, and counting.
Starts by checking his email at 2:55. This item is also in evidence. And then by 3:02, he's hitting up my free cams. 3:02:43, he's at Sylvie's webpage. Then he's reinstituting his account account restoration, 306. His parents and his brother's bodies aren't even cold. And he's already re-establishing or trying to re-establish contact with Silva.
This is all adds up to reasonable doubt. That's the whole point of this. This all adds up to reasonable doubt. They had to prove the case. You heard financial records. He's not being charged with money laundering. He's not being charged with theft. He's being charged with first-degree premeditated murder. And this is serious. You dot your I's, you cross your T's. You don't let Blay come in here and testify as to all these instruments with nothing to back it up, just her opinion. That's not the way it's done, ladies and gentlemen.
Powerful closing arguments earlier today. At this point, it was much earlier today, but the jury has the case. They've had it for almost 7.5 hours. They're still deliberating into the night. The judge has left everything in the hands of the jury, so they will decide when they are done for the night, when they want to go not home, but to the hotel, because if they don't reach a verdict tonight, they are sequestered until they reach a verdict. And if they don't reach a verdict tomorrow or Friday, they will be sequestered into the weekend and continue deliberating on Saturday. So this is a judge who has given a lot of power to this jury to determine how they want to deliberate. Some judges give them a cutoff time. Some judges don't let them stop. But this judge has left it in their hands. And amazingly, we haven't heard anything from this jury. The only thing they've asked for is a whiteboard and some Post-it notes, which I think is good because they want to go through the evidence and figure things out and look at the evidence, put up one of those boards like you see on TV sometimes. Anyway, great closing arguments. My think tank is back with me. Let me reintroduce who we have with us. Chad Seibel, he is a great criminal defense attorney down in Sanford, Florida. If you watched the Casey Anthony trial, he was the man behind the scenes, clerking for Judge Belvin Perry. Also with us, we've got criminal defense attorneys Michael Bixon, Ashley McMahon, and Julius Collins. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for staying late for a little bit of closing arguments OT, which is awesome. So the issue that I want to talk about right now, the bodies were not even cold, and he's getting online. To me, that's such a vivid image for this jury. Such a vivid image that he is so, I mean, does the jury have to believe that the motive was that he wanted her more than he wanted his own family?
I don't know that the jury has to even come to that conclusion in this in order to convict him necessarily. I do think they have a substantial amount of evidence with the timeline, if we're believing it, combined with the letter that, he wrote out and his own admissions, during the interrogation. And I think it's a strong case. But the longer that this jury deliberates, what that tells me as a defense attorney is the more doubt that they have. They are not, if they were absolutely convinced and all of them, were unanimous on this, we'd have a verdict pretty quickly. And even if we've just got a split, like, our viewers out there, at 20%, even if just that's two. That's two. That's all you need for the whiteboard and the Post-it notes and to be going over what is reasonable doubt in this case.
Yeah, what gives me some hope, if I was the prosecution right now, is there have been no questions. So there's no specific things that they're hung up on yet, which may be good, may be bad, but that isn't happening yet. What are your thoughts about the role of the webcam girl here? Is that question, answering that question, why he did it, crucial to prosecutors here?
It depends on which version you're spinning. If you're spinning the version the prosecutors are giving, that he was maybe so obsessed with her and so incensed that they had removed his ability to be with her that he then murdered his family, then obviously she's the motive. It's a crucial part in it. I don't think you need to bring her here for that. I think they have ample evidence as it is. But like I said earlier, if you were to spin it from the defense side, that, why take away your only source of income and ability to keep reaching out to her and making contact with her? I think that's a very big hole for the prosecutors as well.
Yeah. So he could also get a job.
Well, he could, but
I know he's a millennial, but he could get a job.
Evidently, it's never worked for him, right? And we know he stole all this money over time from his family. And like I said earlier, I don't know if you necessarily want to take that ability away. So it just depends on which way you spin it. But either way, it does revolve around her.
Yeah. Chad, what's the overall takeaway you have from how significant, how obsessed was he? Was it demonstrated in that courtroom that for Grant Amato, Sylvia from Bulgaria was the most important thing in his life, more important than his own mother, his own father, and his own brother who he idolized?
Vinny, I think it helps understand it a little bit better. I don't like characterizing him as obsessed so much as he was addicted. He was addicted to this woman. He was addicted to the internet pornography that she was creating for him. And if anybody knows, if any of these jurors can understand anything with addiction, unfortunately, most people have a family member or friend that they can relate to in dealing with addiction. He was not capable of loving his family or even appreciating their family when his singular focus was on getting his fix with this woman.
Yeah, and for folks who aren't familiar with what exactly, what's a webcam girl, what's going on there, she has a website that is still active, by the way. One of our producers was able to log on to it for just a couple minutes. And there's actual menus on there on what she'll do and how much it costs. And the fees are astronomical. I'm trying to remember, I think it was hundreds of dollars for her to smoke a cigarette.
Wow.
Yeah. And she's got a group of followers. So, she and whoever she works with or for make a lot of money and knows how to work someone. Yeah. And to me, that's what makes this so plausible, that her entire existence, her profession is to hook people and make them believe this fantasy that this beautiful woman in Bulgaria actually cares about you, cares about this lonely guy who's 29 years old without a job, living in his parents' home, putting on headphones and sitting in front of a computer all day.
Money is the motivation. I mean, she was the end game, but the motivation was completely money. I think we can all agree that she wasn't in a relationship with this guy. In his mind, she was.
Absolutely.
But if he didn't have the money, then there was no contact. He had to, I think he renewed his account, or he logged back into his account, but he tried to use one of the family members' debit card account so he can do so. So I think the money is the main issue, and she only talked to him for the money. It wasn't because she loved him. It was once she found out, hey, you're not this big-time gamer, I'm done. You don't have any more money.
No more freebies for you. Because he was getting some freebies, right? She would mail things to him, and he was like, pretty please send me some, I don't like to pay for it, makes me feel weird.
And as we recall, who busted that cover that he was using?
His family.
They're now deceased.
The victims.
So, yeah.
The victims. And to me, you put those two things together, and to me, it makes sense. It's logical. It's a reasonable explanation for all of it. I mean, for me. Let's take a look at more of a closing argument here. I want Jeffrey Dowdy here. And for the defense, I think the crucial fact for them in dispute is, when was Chad Amato killed? That's really the central focus. And they believe that based upon telephone activity, that from their perspective, it's reasonable to believe that he's alive around 9 o'clock. Take a listen to Jeff Dowdy make that argument to the jury.
Cody got a phone call at a little bit after 9, and he told her it was from my dad. And she said that he picked up the phone and he was talking on the phone. The state wants you to believe that that's a text. Again, use your common sense. Is that how you text? Holding your phone up like that? No, he was having a phone conversation. He was having a phone conversation with his dad. With his dad. After 9 o'clock. Now, if his dad's alive at 9 o'clock, do you think his mom has been dead for 5 hours? No way. No way. Margaret's still alive too. And just because there's been no activity on her work computer, that does not mean she's dead. That doesn't mean she's dead, okay? They want to say that she's dead, so if you want to believe the state's theory, that means that Chad's been walking around the house for 5 hours and poor Margaret's laying on the desk dead. That didn't happen. That didn't happen. So we know Margaret's alive. The state's timeline does not add up.
All right, so let's break down this timeline a little bit. And for the defense, it seems crucial if the jury believes it's reasonable. A reasonable explanation is that Chad, dad, could be alive at 9 o'clock on his cell phone. For the prosecution, you go back to the office and where mom is. I think it's crucial for prosecutors to convince this jury beyond a reasonable doubt that mom is dead at like between 4:30, 4:45, 5 o'clock, somewhere in that time frame. Because in that time frame, there's no defense explanation because the defendant puts himself in the house at that time. So to me, those are the two crucial times. Who has a better argument here?
I think the defense did, hands down. The way that he broke it down in terms of the timeline, I think was absolutely correct. You know, and for the prosecution, it's a different standard, right? I mean, the defense on a circumstantial case, they just have to show a reasonable explanation, an alternative theory.
A reasonable alternative theory, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's exactly what he did when he was up there giving that closing. Exactly what he did. And I think that's something that the prosecution actually missed out on.
I think Jeff is doing an amazing job doing exactly what he's supposed to, which is creating doubt. And, you know, you kind of have to wonder in this case, with the timelines being so important, maybe the reason that the jurors asked for that whiteboard and those sticky notes, I wonder if they're back there right now with two separate timelines, creating that and putting the sticky notes where the defense is and where each victim is in each different scenario. So
yeah. If I was a foreperson, that's what I'd be doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely.
The defense on this one, Vinny, they have a witness. If
Who's
I'm not
the witness?
mistaken, isn't that Cody's
girlfriend? Cody's girlfriend, yeah.
Who testified to that.
Right, her testimony was confusing a little bit because on the one hand, she, in her initial statement, said, yeah, he was on the phone with his dad, but then their phone records, and when she testified about, well, I said that, but I didn't actually hear him on the other end, and the phone records say something contrary. So it was a mishmash, but I still think even the mishmash helps defense more than prosecution.
Absolutely, because you can't contradict it. Of course, you got the cell phone records, but you still have a witness who made that statement, and nobody's going to contradict it other than the record. So, you know, I just think that one hit home, and if a jury hears, hey, they have a witness who said this, I think they may buy into it.
All right, speaking of time, 7 hours, 33 minutes. The jury's been deliberating. We're waiting to hear what they have to say. We'll be on the air all night until the jury goes home or they reach a verdict.
So tell us what happened, Grant. Is that how you left your family?
No, I didn't do any of this.
Grant Amato is accused of killing his family.
The rules are simple.
This is a case like I've never seen.
Prosecutors say he stole more than $200,000 from his family to send to this webcam model.
Some girl in Bulgaria got $200,000. I just want the truth.
Grant Amato seemed to have the picture-perfect upbringing. Born in 1989, Grant was the youngest of 3 boys, raised by his father, Chad Amato, and his mother, Margaret Amato, a close-knit family living in this home in Chuliota, Florida. Grant graduated from college with his nursing degree in 2011 and began working in the nursing field in 2012. He was closest to his older brother, Cody, an anesthesiologist. Grant planned to enter the same field and enrolled in Barry University's anesthesia program for graduate school. But in the summer of 2018, his life seemed to make a sharp turn. While working for a hospital in East Orlando, co-workers reported Grant Amato to police. Hospital employees believed he was suicidal and allegedly stealing vials of sedative drug propofol. Amato was arrested and booked into jail for grand theft on June 21st, 2018. After being released on bond, Grant spent a lot of time at home and online. During his time on the web, he became tangled in love with a Bulgarian video model from a camgirl website.
In November of 2018, Chad and Margaret discovered the costly affair. Grant spent over $200,000 on his online girlfriend, money police say he stole from his parents and brother Cody. The family does not press charges, and they want to get Grant help. Brothers Grant and Cody get away to Japan in December of 2018. But when he returns, the family realizes he's still obsessed with Sylvia Ventislavova. They urge him to enter rehab in Fort Lauderdale on December 18, 2018. Grant agrees to a 2-month program, but he decides to leave early on January 9th. His desires for the alluring Bulgarian model don't subside. In a letter written on January 22nd, he proclaims his undying love, saying, quote, "I care for her deeply and wish for an actual second chance with her." It's 2 days later that the timelines for the state and defense deviate. The state alleges Grant was at home alone with his mother Margaret around 4:30 p.m. on January 24, 2019. While sitting at her computer in the home office, prosecutors say Grant shot her, execution style, from behind. The defense says that account does not fit the evidence. Grant admits to being in the home, but says no one was hurt when his father kicked him out of the house. The state then believes Grant's next victim, his father Chad, arrived home from work as a pharmacist around 5:30 p.m. Crime scene analysts say Chad was shot twice in the kitchen. Hours later, Cody comes home between 9:30 and 10 o'clock p.m. Prosecutors say Grant placed shell casings from Cody's gun around the 3 bodies and placed the gun near his brother's head.
What the defendant did in this case is he staged a murder-suicide scene. The 4 shell casings that were found in the house were in fact ejected from the gun found near Cody, but the bullets that were recovered that killed the victims were not fired from that gun.
There are also digital records between Chad and Cody's cell phone at 11:41 p.m. and 12:31 a.m. The defense says this activity proves the family was still alive and that the state's timeline of events is flawed. After leaving the scene of a massacre, the state says it's after 12:27 a.m. that Grant Amato travels to a Publix parking lot to log on to the Wi-Fi. And at 2:08 a.m., he uses Cody's bank account to buy more tokens for Sylvia's Camgirl website.
Cody then came into the house and Grant saw Cody in the kitchen. Grant then left his dad and Cody as they were talking downstairs. Grant went upstairs to transfer files to his flash drive, something that the state had brought up earlier. Then Cody came into the room while Grant was transferring the files. At this time, Cody gave Grant his debit card for anything Grant needed to take care of himself while Cody tried to smooth things over.
The next morning, a neighbor tells police he heard a gunshot from the Amato home around 9 a.m. the morning of January 25th. The bodies of Chad, Margaret, and Cody Amato are discovered by police during a wellness check at 9:17 a.m.
No white Honda.
25 miles away at 10 a.m. Grant Amato is being interviewed for a job by Express Scripts. At 2:47 p.m., he checks into the DoubleTree Hilton Hotel, which is where police find him the following morning on January 26th and bring him in for questioning. 2 days later, on January 28th, the state charges the 29-year-old with 3 counts of murder.
In this case, really about a battle of the timelines, prosecution versus defense. And Julie Janae putting that together with the help of the folks here at Court TV. And really, you talk about where they diverge, what happened on that afternoon, crucial to this case. Now, 7 hours, 42 minutes, jury's been deliberating. We are staying here until they are done for the night, whether it's a verdict or they just want to go back to the hotel because they will be sequestered if they don't reach a verdict tonight. I've got my think tank still with me talking about timelines in this case. We've got Chad Seibel with us, as well as Michael Bixon and Julius Collins. I want to talk about another timeline in this case, which is from the time of this murder to the time of the trial. This is what you call a speedy trial. Speedy trial rights were not waived by the defense. The defense wanted to move this case fast. Was that the right decision? I mean, it's easy to say after the verdict, but let's talk about it before the verdict right now. Chad Seibel, what do you think? Was that the right call by the defense to move for a speedy trial in this, a death penalty case?
Vinny, I think the goal for any defense attorney, for any defendant, you want to handle your case, you want to resolve your case as quickly as possible, as long as you're prepared and you can do a good job. From what we've seen with the performance of the defense, they seem prepared. They have their case mastered. They're doing a great job with the evidence that they have. For them to have continued this to take longer, I don't see where the need is. They're prepared. Why waste any more time? Tee it up and get it done.
You know, Julius, in this case, there was the first time he logged on was June of last year. And now here we are, you know, the end of July. He's on trial for his life. I mean, that's right. Fast to become addicted to this woman, and then there's a murder that takes place, and then we're at trial here. Is it to the defense's advantage in this case that they move so quickly?
Absolutely. One thing about a speedy trial, and I'm sure Michael can agree, most times defense attorneys, we want speedy trials when we feel as though there's a lack of evidence. We're not going to give you any time to go ahead and, I don't want to say manufacture evidence, but try to dig down, try to double down on the evidence that you already have. Witnesses start coming forward. Hey, well, remember this day? Didn't you hear this? And now you just start creating more and more of chaos towards the defense. So I like the idea of going forward with the speedy trial because, as I said, it's no evidence linking to Mr. Grant Amato to this, any physical evidence, just circumstantial evidence.
And Michael, you know, usually, right? The defense, the longer you wait, you know, witnesses disappear, they forget, but this is the opposite. Are they catching the prosecution perhaps not prepared or not as fully prepared as they could have been?
I think that was the idea behind this. And there are some times when you want to stretch out a case, you know, when you're dealing with a criminal defense case. I don't think this was that kind of case, though. I think for the defense, the quicker that they moved it to trial, the better for them. And clearly, I mean, no one's going to question that they're prepared for this case. Throughout this entire trial, they've been prepared, they've been knowledgeable, they've been, you know, able to handle the issues as they came up. I think they were extremely prepared. And I think what they were trying to do was push the prosecution into this trial, hoping that they weren't going to be as prepared as they should be. I think so far they have done a good job as well.
Yeah, I mean, prosecutors don't expect this. I mean, the normal time for a death penalty case down in Florida, Chad, my understanding, the normal time for a death penalty case usually takes maybe 3 years or so to get to trial in many of these death penalty cases down there.
That is right, Vinny. Cases of this seriousness do not typically get taken to trial this quickly. But as Julius and Mike were saying, well, let me ask this question. What benefit is there to the defense in stretching this out longer? The defense will not be securing any new witnesses. The defense will not be finding new evidence that could help Grant in this situation. But the prosecution absolutely will continue to be researching, investigating. Just because the case is now in the courtroom or in the courthouse doesn't mean that the investigators and the cops stop working on a case when it's this serious. There is no benefit to the defense. When you're prepared and there's always that chance of more evidence coming out, yeah, let's push it through before this state becomes more prepared than they already are.
All right, we are on a verdict watch tonight, folks. This is closing arguments, overtime at Court TV, 7 hours, 47 minutes. The jury's job tonight is to reach a verdict. If they don't, they go back to a hotel, and we'll be back tomorrow morning. But we will stay here as long as they are working. All right, the verdict watch continues here on Court TV. The jury's still working. You see the clock still ticking. We'll be on the air until the jury comes back and reaches a verdict or tell us that they are done for the night. In the meantime, taking a look at what happened today, some great closing arguments by both sides. Dominic Leo for the state attorney's office down in Florida really did a nice job. In this part, he's talking about the lies that Grant told. Take a listen.
Mr. Dowdy said that there were 2 lies that Grant told during the course of his interview. 2. So these are my notes. Actually, these are Mr. Stone's notes. And again, review your own and watch the video. Met with my brother before he came home. Lie. I'm not going to count. You can count. I waited in the neighborhood area. Lie. I was on the back side of the house. Lie. Take the bend where it has those 2 blinking lights. Lie. Just down that road. Lie. It was just down that road. Twice he said that. Lie. I brought him, Cody, up to speed. Lie. I spoke with Cody. Lie. He had given me his debit card. Off the road, on the road. Lie. The last thing he told me is that he would take care of it. Lie. I met with Cody at 10 or 10:30-ish. Lie. After that, I stayed in the vicinity of the area. Lie. Met Cody way down this road, pointing on the map, down in the country area. Lie. About a mile. Lie. Off the road. Lie. Talk with Cody for about 10 minutes or so. Lie. He said he would take care of it. Lie. My mom brought Cody up to speed. Cody told me, and my mom spoke with him. Lie. I mean, that's not 2 lies. I don't even know how many that is. More than 2.
Wow. That's good. That's really good. As a matter of fact, I think I have to quote something from back in the day, probably in the 80s. There was a group called the Thompson Twins. And I think the direct quote is, lies, 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 they're going to get you. And the question is, will those lies end up getting Grant Amato? All right, Michael Bixon still with me here in studio. Michael, that was effective.
They did a great job at breaking that down for the jury. I mean, that was a terrific job on the prosecution's part. I still think there's room for the defense to come in on that, but the job they did on that was terrific.
Yeah, Chad, the other thing I liked about it was not only attacking the lies of the defendant, but also taking a shot at the defense. This is the rebuttal in the part where he knows that Jeff Dowdy cannot ever utter another word in front of that jury because he's already done. So he gets the last word, and he takes a little shot saying, oh, it wasn't 2 lies, and then, wow.
Yeah, I think it was very effective, Vinny, for the prosecution just to go through and make it, well, for the prosecution to go through and sit there and hit every single point, every single lie, make it just super clear for the jury, it was very effective.
All right, we got some breaking news, folks. I've just been told that the jury has reached a verdict. A verdict has been reached. Is that correct, Bill? Okay, folks, this is it, the moment we've been waiting for. 7 hours, 55 minutes, and the jury has reached a verdict in the death penalty trial of Grant Amato. Remember, there are 3 counts, 3 victims, and now the jury, after just under 8 hours, is getting ready to speak to us and tell us what they have found here. So the big news as we sit here right now at 9:52 Eastern Time is that the jury has, in fact, indicated that they've reached a verdict. Now, what Chanley Painter told us earlier tonight is that everyone is very close by, so it will not be long until that verdict is delivered inside the courtroom. If we take a look at the camera inside the courtroom, I think we can see that the seal is up, okay? So when the judge takes the bench, they will pull back from the seal. But the big breaking news, folks, do not go anywhere. The verdict is in. We are waiting for it to be read in front of the defendant, the prosecution, the attorneys, and everyone else, the Amato family, Jason Amato, who will hear what the jury has to say about this. So they did it all in one day, less than 8 hours of deliberations, which from my perspective, for a trial that is 7 days, usually it's about 1 hour of deliberations for every day. This is about a normal time. Not a long deliberation, not a short one. This is pretty much on target for how long you would expect in a normal case where there weren't necessarily issues or there wasn't a reason for them to reach a very quick verdict. So 7 hours, 55 minutes. Michael Bixon is still with me. Your take, Michael, on the length of deliberations here. Does that tell you anything about what we may find out in probably 15 minutes or less here?
You know, as far as the time, I agree with you. I think it's about an average amount of time for the days that this trial has gone by. I think they've spent at least the proper amount of time really considering all the facts, all the evidence, weighing everything, and I think that's great because honestly, whatever their decision is, I think it shows that they've respected the case and they put the proper amount of study into it and time that it really deserves.
All right, you're just joining us. The big breaking news, folks. We have a verdict in the Grant Amato death penalty case. Again, we are waiting for the folks to assemble inside the courtroom. I can still see the seal is up, and when the seal is up, that means that we cannot pull it back until the judge takes the bench and they're ready for proceedings to begin in there. So as we wait for that, we're assembling our team here. Chanley Painter on the ground down there in Sanford, Florida. She is inside the courtroom, and she will be able to report on everything that is happening inside afterwards. But as she told us previously, everyone is close by. You've got, on the one hand, you have the Amato family who is standing by all night. The public defender's office is close by. The prosecutor's office, at times they were even waiting in the courtroom. So we don't expect it will be long here. And we're getting reports that the attorneys have assembled inside the courtroom. And of course, as there is in every verdict, the extra security is assembling as well. Ted Rowlands, Court TV crime and justice reporter, also joining us here on set. Ted, just under 8 hours, the verdict is in. Your thoughts right now?
A little longer than I thought, given the amount of evidence, but it kind of went with your theorem, and it isn't out of this world. I did expect that there was going to be one way or another, that they were going to go to the hotel or call it, because we were getting to that point. This jury got here at 8:30 this morning, so they've been working their tails off, and now they've come to a conclusion.
Yeah, they got here early, went home, packed their bags, and now they are getting ready to reassemble inside the courtroom. And again, the way this is all going to go down, you've got 3 counts on this verdict sheet, so they've got to decide for each of the 3. But Ted, when I look at this, you know, you just have to decide, did he murder 3 people or not? It's not. There's not going to be any difference between the counts here, I don't think.
No, and frankly, 8 hours, that to me means that somebody had some reasonable doubt creeping in. This wasn't a, let's go through the logistics and let's, elect a 4-person and go through it. That could take, you could argue, 2 to 3 hours. 8, something happened in there. Somebody had some doubts. And, of course, we will never likely know, but you have to think that somebody had some doubts.
Yeah. And is Chad still with us? All right, let me go to Chad Seibel, who is outside the courthouse.
I'm still here, Vinny.
Chad, your thoughts about the length of deliberations here, just under 8 hours. Are you thinking that is more optimistic for one side or the other right now?
I agree that it's an appropriate amount of time. It shows that we can all sit here and hope that the jury did do a honest and fair deliberation with the amount of time spent. As far as what that time means for one side or the other, it's so hard to tell. If I had to guess, though, I'm going to lean slightly towards favorability for the prosecution in this. If there was a holdout, some juror that was holding on to some reasonable doubt in this, the amount of time that they took, for me, leads me to think that the rest of the panel was able to get that juror on their side. Had that juror not been on their side, I don't think we would be here now waiting for this verdict to be dropped any minute. If there was a holdout, I'm sure this would have been carried over to tomorrow.
All right, the breaking news, folks, the verdict is in. The jury has notified the bailiff, who's then notified the court. The attorneys are gathering, extra security gathering inside the courtroom. You're taking a look at the courtroom seal. That camera will be pulled back when the judge is on the bench and the court is in session. And that is just moments away, so don't go anywhere. And think about what this moment is going to be like for everyone involved. Let's begin with Jason Amato. His mother, his father, and his brother were murdered. When he was in that room with his brother, the interview room at the Seminole County Sheriff's Office, he wanted to know what happened. He wanted answers, and he was not getting them from his brother in that room. So the only place he's going to get answers is inside this courtroom when this jury speaks, and what they say maybe will answer his questions about how his family was executed, was slaughtered, was taken from him. That's what I'm thinking about right now. I'm thinking about the other members of the Amato family as well. Then on the other side of the aisle, you have Grant Amato, okay? I wasn't in the room, so I cannot say 100% what happened and who was responsible and how it happened. He knows for sure whether or not he murdered his family. What is he thinking? What is this moment like for him? Because his life could be literally on the line here. This is a death penalty case. If this jury finds him guilty of 3 counts of first-degree premeditated murder, he gets a week, and then he's back on trial for his life. So that's what is at stake in this case. It doesn't get any higher, and the moment that you're about to see does not get any more dramatic and impactful on his life and his brother and the rest of the Amato family. This is difficult stuff. Ted Rowland's still with us. Ted, you have been in the courtroom for moments like this many times, and this is not easy for anyone involved. There's an anxiety that goes along with it that is difficult to express because we feel it sometimes as journalists just covering it. I could not imagine what the family is going through and what Grant Amato and the defense is going through right now.
Yeah, and you've made a good point when you look at the unique aspect of this case, which does happen every now and then, where a family member is in the defendant's chair and the family is conflicted. We saw it. I was in the courtroom during jury selection, and Jason Amato was there watching this entire process. He's been there throughout. We saw him on the stand. You could feel the love he still had for his brother on the stand, even though he was implicating him in the murder of his father, mother, and other brother. But to your point, just amazing amount of emotion.
All right, we've got some pictures from inside the courtroom there just from a moment. Now back on the seal. And again, that tells us that the judge is not on the bench yet, court not in session. As soon as that happens, you know you're going to see and hear it all. Michael Bixon, this is a difficult moment. I'm going to take a look at it from the defense perspective. You're an attorney, you're representing someone, but his life is on the line. What do you say to him at this moment? Anything?
I mean, look, the only thing that you can really do is counsel them through this. And the only thing you could possibly even begin to say to them is that you've done everything you could to prepare for this, you know? And really, there's only so much that he can do that's within his hands that he can control. And a lot of this is outside of his control. And he has to sort of accept that fact. But as far as what he can do, he's done everything he can do throughout this trial to make sure that he has an adequate defense. And I think his lawyers have done a terrific job. So, you know, as far as what he should be concerned with or thinking about, obviously, you know, we all know that he's going to be concerned about a guilty verdict. But, you know, I think once he accepts the fact that it's sort of out of his hands at this point, there's a sort of a calm that comes with that.
And there's Grant Amato. We got a live picture of that. Grant Amato inside the courtroom, sitting there, and pretty consistent with the way that he has been sitting throughout. If we can make that picture a little bigger so folks can see the expression on his face, let's take a look at Grant Amato as he awaits to find out if this jury is going to determine that he is a mass murderer. 3 people's lives were taken by someone, execution style, shot in the back of the head, in the face. And again, in this case, the victims are his mother, father, and brother. He's got a surviving brother who's been in the courtroom throughout, as Ted pointed out, and will be there now with other members of the Amato family. Chanley Painter has described that they've been sitting on the side of the courtroom behind the prosecution. I don't know if that signals what they think here. Many times it does, but I won't pretend to read their minds at this moment or any other moment. They've held on to their privacy, which, of course, we've respected. But this is the moment you think about it. If they say not guilty, he's free tonight. Walks out of the courtroom, gets released from the jail, gets processed. If they say guilty, he's locked up again, and then we'll be back 1 week from now pleading for his life. And I wonder if at that point he will testify. But there's no way to even imagine what this moment is like for him and on the other side for the family, because for a victim, you never get your family members back. Mom, dad, brother Cody, not coming back. But usually victims want a sense of justice, and what that is a guilty verdict for the person they believe is responsible. Somebody held responsible. But what must make this even more difficult for Jason Amato is to be so conflicted and knowing what's at stake here. So as he stands and sits, I assume the judge is on the bench. And we're just waiting for the audio feed.
Point, if you could please go get the jury.
Jury is present.
You may be seated. All right. I'm told that you all have reached a verdict. Yes. All right. If you could please hand the deputy the verdict forms, please. Madam Clerk, if you could please publish the verdicts. If you could please stand, Mr. Amato.
In the Circuit Court of the 18th Judicial Circuit in and for Seminole County, Florida, State of Florida versus Grant Amato, case number 1933 CFA. Verdict, count 1, Margaret Amato. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of first-degree premeditated murder. Further finding, we further find beyond a reasonable doubt that during the commission of the offense, the defendant personally carried, displayed, used, threatened to use, or attempted to use a firearm or a weapon. Further finding, we further find that during the commission of the crime, the defendant actually possessed a firearm. Further finding 2, we further find that during the commission of the crime, the defendant discharged a firearm. Further finding 3, we further find that during the commission of the crime, the defendant discharged a firearm and caused the death of Margaret Amato. Verdict, count 2, Chad Amato. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of first-degree premeditated murder. Further finding, we further find beyond a reasonable doubt that during the commission of the offense, the defendant personally carried, displayed, used, threatened to use, or attempted to use a firearm or a weapon. Further findings 1, we further find that during the commission of the crime, the defendant actually possessed a firearm. Further finding 2, We further find that during the commission of the crime, the defendant discharged a firearm. Further findings 3. We further find that during the commission of the crime, the defendant discharged a firearm and caused the death of Chad Amato. Verdict, count 3, Cody Amato. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of first-degree premeditated murder. Further finding, we further find beyond a reasonable doubt that during the commission of the offense, the defendant personally carried, displayed, used, threatened to use, or attempted to use a firearm. Further findings 1. We further find that during the commission of the crime, the defendant actually possessed a firearm. Further findings 2. We further find that during the commission of the crime, the defendant discharged a firearm. Further findings 3. We further find that during the commission of the crime, the defendant discharged a firearm and caused the death of Cody Amato. 1st, 2019.
Do either of you wish to have the jury polled?
No. Yes, ma'am.
Members of the jury, when asked if this is your verdict, please respond yes or no. Juror 256402.
Yes.
Juror 250662.
Yes.
Juror 159388.
Yes.
Juror 259237.
Yes.
Juror 75165.
Yes.
Juror 256469.
Yes.
Juror 228925.
Yes.
Juror 253508.
Yes.
Juror 195914.
Yes.
Juror 266822.
Yes.
Juror 200019.
Yes.
Juror 96142.
Yes.
Thank you.
You may be seated. Members of the jury, at this point, the next proceedings, as we discussed previously, will be on August 12th. The penalty proceedings will then, at that point, for the second phase of the trial, in which to determine the penalty, will be presented at that time, and the evidence presented for that proceedings will be presented at that time. As indicated previously, the court has indicated that you are not to view the internet, not to watch TV in regards to this trial, still not provide or see any social media, view social media or any notifications. Until such time as the penalty proceedings or the second phase of the trial is proceeded and finished and completed and you are discharged as jurors, that is still to remain in effect. You are still to avoid the news as much as you at any point throughout these proceedings. You are also to make sure, and if you see any type of news, as indicated previously, any type of news briefings, change the channel. Avoid any social media. Your notifications are still to remain off. You're not allowed to post or be on social media in any manner. You're to avoid the internet as well and not to be able to provide on the internet. You will be able to go about your business from this point forward, at least as you did when we retired here every night and when we were in recesses, just as you did before. In the evenings, you'll be able to go about your personal affairs at this point from this time forward until August 12th. However, those rules are to remain in effect. If you were to violate any of those rules, there is the part where if the court were to discover, or either the state or the defense, and it comes to the court's attention, again, that is a situation in which sanctions can be provided of either jail, which would be up to 175 days in jail, a fine, or both. So I cannot stress to you enough how you must follow these orders that are previously indicated by the court. They are to remain in effect. The second phase of the trial will start on August 12th. As indicated, I would like you all here by 8:45 that morning. We will begin that morning at 9 a.m. as I am to qualify the jury that is to occur that morning. So that will allow you all to come here, be presented to the deputy, you'll meet them outside, and they'll bring you back as well in the jury room. Okay? At this point, you all, is there anything further for the state or the defense before I have the jury gather their belongings, since they're not going to need hotel for this evening? From the defense? No. So at this point, I know you all had your belongings in the jury room in case you chose to adjourn earlier this evening. I do appreciate, again, your service. It will still be continuing, so I do want to make sure that you all are aware of that. But you can gather your belongings, you can retire into the jury room with the deputy, and then you can proceed from there. All right? Do you all have any questions of this court before I, at this point, excuse you? All right. Thank you very much. You all may be seated. All right, so the second phase of the trial, in which we are dealing with the penalty phase, that will begin then on August 12th, as we previously discussed. You all can then otherwise make sure that all the witnesses or otherwise are disclosed, any experts that may also be testifying, further to make sure whatever evidence is needed, everything that same as procedures as we did for this phase of the trial. I am qualifying the jury that morning, should be probably about 8:30, should probably be done by about 10 till, so then we can start up hopefully about 9 o'clock. Yes. All right? Is there anything else? Thank you, Judge. You're welcome. Pardon?
The verdict is in, folks. And as taking a look at folks leaving that courtroom, incredibly difficult moment, you could tell, for everyone involved. We saw the pictures of Jason Amato with Christina. They have a family. We're living a normal life, and now their world has been torn by the actions of his own brother, taking the life of his mother, his father, and his brother Cody, who did nothing wrong. Tried everything that they could to help Grant Amato, a son who betrayed his own family, stealing all that money, completely disrupting the family, yet that family was willing to help him and support him, just following a few simple rules. And he couldn't do it. Right now inside the courtroom, there are hugs being exchanged. I can see out of the corner of my eye between the prosecutor and Jason Amato and the family. You can tell from those pictures, I think that reveals a lot about the Amato family and what they thought happened here. There's Jericho Fine, who was a friend of Cody Amato, and at one point a friend of Grant Amato. And for all of them who testified and got in court, told the truth, Jason Amato has been through it and beyond. How do you reconcile that? How do you piece that together? I mean, we showed you the pictures earlier tonight of 3 little boys growing up together. I mean, many of you can share those experiences. You have siblings. You know that incredible bond you have with your siblings, and how, you know, it's your job, you know, to take care. I remember what my dad would tell me and my brother, that, you know, at some point he's not going to be here and we need to take care of each other. And that's what you're supposed to do as siblings, right? And it didn't happen here. One of the siblings destroyed that family, and the jury spoke tonight and spoke the truth about what happened. Grant Amato is a murderer. Grant Amato is a mass murderer. Grant Amato is a man who cared more about logging on to speak to some woman who just wanted to take all his money, cared more about her than his own mother, his own father, and his brother, who at one point he idolized. Let me get some more reaction here. Mark O'Mara's at the courthouse. Mark, I looked at the evidence one way. I don't, you know, I'm not an expert on everything. I saw the evidence one way, but I'm a former prosecutor. That's the filter I see it through. Do you believe justice was done tonight?
Well, firstly, we must and we should respect any verdict that a jury comes up with. And they spent enough time to go over all the evidence and to come to a conclusion. One, I respect it. It certainly is supported by the evidence. You know, I talked to you yesterday that I thought that there was some reasonable doubt floating about the state's case because it was a circumstantial evidence case and there were some possibilities that they may not have covered, but they certainly did enough to take away reasonable doubt in those 12 people. We have to respect them, and now you look at it, it's a sad day. Obviously, it was a sad day years ago for most of the Amato family. It's just a sad day to watch a son go down for having been determined to kill the entirety almost of his family. It's just horribly sad. But I respect the jury's verdict, and I do think that justice was served because they had a good case and they listened and they decided.
Ted Rollins, Court TV crime and justice reporter, has been covering this intensely. Was justice done tonight?
Oh, I think so. I think the evidence was there. I think it was clear it was there. One of the things that really stood out to me watching the family reaction, you have to remember, this is still raw. This wasn't years ago what most death penalty cases are. You get to this point in trial. This was 7 months ago, so think about it. The loss, they're still processing that. What this family has been through is just incredible.
Michael Bixon, justice served tonight down in Sanford, Florida?
I think so. I think as much as I argue for the defense, I do think that the prosecution obviously was able to meet their burden, and they had a lot of evidence in this case, and it was circumstantial, but there was just a lot of evidence. There was a lot to try to defend against on the defense side. To be honest with you, I think we all sat here, all the defense attorneys, and we probably thought, yeah, it's more likely than not that he committed this murder. Obviously, that's not the standard by which we go by for a conviction, but when you have all the defense attorneys sort of sitting here and thinking that, it's usually not a good sign. And I think the state was able, in this case, to meet that burden, and they did.
All right, so this again is a death penalty case, so it's not over. You heard the judge, August 12th, everyone will be back in court, and then the game changes. It's not about did he do it, did he not do it. This jury's already resolved that issue. The question is, what should happen now to Grant Amato? Should they recommend life or should they recommend death for this defendant? That is a much different scenario. And the facts in this case about the obsession that the prosecutor was able to use as the motive could perhaps be some of the best evidence for the defense in mitigation of what was going on up here. Get him evaluated by some expert to talk about this addiction/obsession as some explanation for what he did. Ted Rollins, your thoughts moving forward. Do you think that's where the defense will go in trying to save his life, is use the prosecution's evidence from this phase in the penalty phase?
Absolutely. They are going to make him, and they should. I mean, this guy was not himself, and that will be their argument, that this was a man possessed. For whatever reason, he was obsessed and addicted. What's going to be fascinating is where does Jason Amato stand? Where does the family stand? Because when Jason Amato was on that stand, you could feel the love he still had for Grant Amato. Is he on board with this? Which way will he go? And I think the jury will take a nod. They usually do from family members. If they feel like the family really wants to impose a death penalty, that's when a jury acts. When there is a misgiving or they're not sure, that makes it a lot harder.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And that's going to be, I think, the focal point and the most important part of that thing, if in fact Jason Amato speaks and who he speaks on behalf of. Folks, if you're just joining us, breaking news, the verdict is in. I want to take this opportunity to show you that moment again. Grant Amato, 3 counts of first-degree premeditated murder. Take a look.
Madam Clerk, if you could please publish the verdicts. If you could please stand, Mr. Amato.
In the Circuit Court of the 18th Judicial Circuit in and for Seminole County, Florida, State of Florida versus Grant Amato, case number 1933 CFA. Verdict, count 1, Margaret Amato. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of first-degree premeditated murder. Further finding, we further find beyond a reasonable doubt that during the commission of the offense, the defendant personally carried, displayed, used, threatened to use, or attempted to use a firearm or a weapon. Further finding, we further find that during the commission of the crime, the defendant actually possessed a firearm. Further finding 2, we further find that during the commission of the crime, the defendant discharged a firearm. Further finding 3, We further find that during the commission of the crime, the defendant discharged a firearm and caused the death of Margaret Amato. Verdict, count 2, Chad Amato. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of first-degree premeditated murder. Further finding, we further find beyond a reasonable doubt that during the commission of the offense, the defendant personally carried, displayed, used, threatened to use, or attempted to use a firearm or a weapon. Further findings, 1. We further find that during the commission of the crime, the defendant actually possessed a firearm. Further finding, 2. We further find that during the commission of the crime, the defendant discharged a firearm. Further findings, 3. We further find that during the commission of the crime, the defendant discharged a firearm and caused the death of Chad Amato. Verdict, count 3, Cody Amato. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of first-degree premeditated murder. Further finding, we further find beyond a reasonable doubt that during the commission of the offense, the defendant personally carried, displayed, used, threatened to use, or attempted to use a firearm. Further findings, 1. We further find that during the commission of the crime, the defendant actually possessed a firearm. Further findings, 2. We further find that during the commission of the crime, the defendant discharged a firearm. Further findings, 3. We further find that during the commission of the crime, the defendant discharged a firearm and caused the death of Cody Amato. So say we all, signed 4-person, dated July 31st, 2019. Do either of you...
All right, folks, that was the verdict. Let's go to Chanley Painter, who was inside the courtroom for all of this tonight. Chanley, describe for us what it was like inside.
Well, first of all, we gathered in the courtroom. You could hear a pin drop, Vinny. Of course, the family of the Amato sitting there on the prosecutor's side of the courtroom. We had a lot of familiar faces: Jason Amato, his girlfriend, aunts and uncles, friends, family, Blake Turpin, Jericho Fine, everyone waiting for the verdict. The defense team stood for the jury to come in and stood during the reading of this verdict. The jury, when they entered the courtroom, seemed very stoic, very serious, and didn't make eye contact with the defendant or anyone like that. They read the verdict, and you could feel the emotions. I'm sitting near the family. I could see Jason and his girlfriend Christina react visibly as in agreement with the guilty verdicts on all 3 counts, as well as Blake Turpin and Jericho Fine touched each other when that first guilty was read for everyone to hear. And it was a moment that really the whole courtroom sort of just stood still as all 3 counts were guilty.
You know, Chanley, we saw those hugs, and I saw prosecutors hugging Jason Amato and folks from the Amato family. Now we move on to the next phase of this trial, beginning August 12th. Do we have any indication, one way or the other, at this point, whether the members of the Amato family will speak during the penalty phase, and if so, for whom they will speak?
Well, the prosecutors are able to present victim impact statements during the penalty phase of a death case. Now, these statements are limited under the law in Florida. They aren't able to give their opinion of the crime or opinion of penalty of that nature. They're just able to talk about the impact of the death of these family members on their lives. So the jury may not hear that, but there's no formal indication of what they may be thinking or communicating with the prosecutor on which way they will lean, but we can probably expect to hear them during those victim impact statements.
And Chanley, we were watching Grant Amato throughout all of this, and it seemed like there was an expression that just didn't change. Did you notice anything from him? Did his knees buckle at any moment? Was there anything from him?
Well, first of all, it was pretty difficult to see him because he was surrounded by bailiffs, extra security in the courtroom, but I was looking the entire time. I didn't see any movement whatsoever in his face or his body in any part, this reaction to this verdict being read. And it was a long verdict being read, 3 different victims, 3 different counts, and of course all guilty.
All guilty. Ted Rollins, I want to go to you here in the studio. Ted, so moving to that next phase, your thoughts about the family again. When they speak, they'll talk about the impact. How much, I think the jury is just going to be listening to them more than the lawyers and what they say and how they say it.
Yeah, I think they'll take a cue from the family, definitely, and it'll be interesting to see what role the family wants to play in this. You know, when we saw that police interview, Jason Amato said to his brother at the end of it, said, I think you did this. You're not coming to my house. I'm scared of you, but I love you. And don't forget that. And they hugged. And then on the stand, you could feel as he spoke that he still, when he talked about his, his formative years growing up with his brothers, you could feel that he still had his love for his brother. And then during the verdict, that was so emotional with Christina bawling. This is a difficult thing. They wanted justice, but do they want, they only know, do they want the ultimate penalty to be paid?
Yeah, Mark O'Mara, what I see as ironic in all of this, it seems that the person who could save Grant Amato's life right now is the same man whose mother and father and brother's life was taken by Grant Amato, and that's Jason.
And you're absolutely right. I really believe, I have not talked to anyone on the family's behalf, but I have to think that the family that they had at one point in their lives, no matter how bizarre it got at the end, that family life that they had, the connection that was obvious in the way they were growing up, I'm going to hazard a guess that Jason is going to get across to that jury through the state or himself that he wants his brother's life spared rather than seeing yet another family member put to death. And I don't know this, but I can just tell from the way this thing has developed, what you said about the I still love you comment by Jason, I can really see Jason saying spare his life.
Absolutely. Mark O'Mara, appreciate it. Thanks so much. A big thank you to Ted Rowlands, working late with me tonight, and Michael Bixon, standing by all night. Really appreciate it, fellas. What we're going to do now, folks, is take you back to our pre-recorded programming. We'll return you to that. But don't forget, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, all day long, we'll be recapping and taking a look forward in this case. What happens next for Grant Amato? Because August 12th, he's back in court, and Court TV will be covering it. Have a great night, folks, and don't forget to hug the kids.
It's time to go beyond the